Call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock. For today, we have a quorum. Call to order. First item is public input.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
On behalf of a member of the public from Bristol, Mrs. Jane Marshall, who's on Marshall Court. Got her billed yesterday, or day before yesterday, for $2,600.
Oh my.
Water. Evidently, there was a leak in 3 months since the last quarter. Terribly upset because she's been a consistent, good payer. And so I talked to her briefly today. And so I asked her to put down all the particulars in writing and to put the issue on the agenda for next month. She is going to forward me the information. I'll get it on the agenda so we can look at it for next month.
Has staff been involved with this?
Yes, she called her, what it is, it's a meter pit on a main street that services 2 house lots on a private street. I think it was Marshall Court. Foxy Marshall is one Foxy and Jane Marshall. Foxy's deceased. And Kenny Marshall, the ex-council person, as the other resident. The break took place during, it's February, March. Because of the snow and the ice, it wasn't noticed. Kenny was away, not the, he was away.
So we'll deal with it next month.
Yeah, I just want, and so, yeah, and so we'll deal with that next month, but I don't know if there's, you know, the bill says you have to pay by a certain date in April, I think, or something like that.
It's a 30-day date.
Okay, so just, if you know, no penalties until we get it before the board, and I can get all of the information for you people to review. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. Any other public input? Seeing none. We'll move right to minutes. The board meeting of March 25th. Have a motion to accept? So moved. Moved, second. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I got a number of comments.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to add under the executive director's report, information that Pam provided.
What date of the minutes?
325.
325. Okay, on page 1 under the director's report. I'd just like to have a little note added that Pam had provided updates on ongoing and future projects, because there was a lot of discussion on that in her report. I'll leave this information with Sid when I get done.
Okay.
On page 3, under the motion for the non-bargaining unit salary increases, for the record, I'd like to have what I proposed at that time during the discussion. I'd like to have that I suggested a lump sum of 2.85% bonus amount in lieu of salary increases.
Now, you only put down a motion, what was passed. You don't put down everything that was defeated, you don't put down everything that was discussed.
Actually, to do if it was seconded. If it's moved and seconded, even if it's
If
defeated.
it's defeated, you don't put down all the motions that are defeated, leaving
It
just
wasn't,
one that's passed.
excuse me, it wasn't a motion.
So it's just a
It was
discussion.
part of the discussion.
Yeah, but you don't put down all the discussion, because then you'd have to put down, someone said 2.7, someone said 3.4, you have to put down all the discussion. You don't normally in minutes put all the minutia, only what the board passed.
Well, okay then,
Yeah, but if you, I mean,
I don't think that's true.
he has the right to ask
May I
that.
have your input on that?
You're both right. You're not gonna put down every comma word, but if he's asking to amend the minutes to reflect something, and it did take place during discussion, you could, then they should be amended.
I think it was an important issue, and I'll tell you why. Because the minutes are incorrect in stating that I voted yay on that motion, and I did not. I voted nay.
Well, we
Well-
will certainly correct that, if you didn't vote for
Yeah,
it.
I mean, that's,
That goes without saying.
But the discussion, it seems to me, is relevant to why you voted against them. I wasn't here, but
Yeah,
it
no,
seems to me it
That was
provides.
my point. It was my reason basically for voting nay. So I would like your opinion on that, and I'll.
yeah, so what I would do then is amend the vote. And then you could put, Ray voted no because X. If he wants that reflected in the minutes.
Well, we should reflect the fact that he voted no, if he voted no.
Yes, and
And
correct.
then next to that, I guess we could put, he had suggested 2.9%.
2.85. I'll give this to
Well-
Fed and Chief
He didn't just suggest 2.85, he suggested putting it in a different format.
as a different format.
And that's what makes it
As a
significant.
bonus, a lump sum bonus.
It's
as a
being
whole.
So
voted in as
so
a
it's not
separate
increasing the
position.
base pay.
Right.
And it was voted, it wasn't even seconded, but it
It was
is.
seconded.
It was?
I did second that.
Okay,
We
Yeah,
did have a
I think
discussion
that
on
that color should be in the minutes.
yeah, I especially very much.
And I had a question about the,
Hold on, just one second. Ray, do you have any more? I just want to give them that.
I do not. Those are the corrections and additions I'd like to have made.
Okay.
and I had a question about the next motion, which was an additional $2,500 for bonuses and awards for employees with cash awards not to exceed $100. That certainly is not self-descriptive to someone who was not at the meeting, so I don't know what it means. Does it mean that no one person gets more than $100, or what does it mean?
At any one time, the executive director is given a fund that she can dispense for awards to,
Not necessarily in cash. It
not
could be
necessarily
other
cash,
awards.
other awards. This is to the employees for work they've done. The discussion we had to do with bonuses. It always came up, the issue that we have, if you give someone an increase that lasts forever.
No, that's fine, but this motion, to me,
You're looking for clarification.
I'm looking for clarification. Does it mean that no cash award will, to any one employee in any 1 year will exceed $100? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, what the purpose of it, because that was my suggestion, was that we've given the executive director a 2,500 fund to do as she decides is appropriate, and her intention was to give out awards to motivate the staff based on good performance, and I did not feel that somebody should get a big lump of sums. I felt that non-monetary award might be more effective for motivational purposes, but you might want to give someone cash to offset the tax liability, so not to exceed $100 in cash.
Which is fine. I just think that motion
Right.
needs to be better defined because I don't find it self-descriptive.
What would you need to, do you understand it now based on what he
I
said?
understand exactly what he's saying.
Okay.
I would suggest that we change the wording to say that there was an additional $2,500 pool for bonuses and non-cash awards for employees approved, with cash awards to individual employees during the next year not to exceed $100 each, and be based upon exceptional performance or some such language.
Criteria established by the
And
executive.
that would, yes, and by the executive director.
And then I had a question about the quarterly charge-offs. I think that when we approve quarterly charge-offs in the minutes, we should indicate if there have been any recoveries from prior charge-offs.
That's the net. That was the net amount. It should have said net.
It should say that. And then my next question was about executive session. When a director is not present, I assume minutes are taken in the executive session, but they are not supplied to someone who didn't attend the meeting. I was not at the meeting, so I have no idea what happened during
We would,
the discussion.
we will pass those around, and when they're available, everyone will get them and turn them back with their receipt. And what we were talking about, actually, the executive session, it was noted, 4246.52, we should have said what that was about.
It does.
It's union negotiations.
That's it. So,
That's all it was.
It did say that.
Hmm?
Yeah, it did say
Yeah,
that.
that's all that it was.
yeah, just discuss that with our negotiator.
Alan, if I could, Gene, if you're done.
That's it.
Okay. I would like to add the word "all" to where it says, "and awards for employees," I'd like that to read "all," employees?
Oh, yes, yes.
For the bonus
Under,
and cash?
under
award?
motion, under number 8, the
Correct.
second motion.
Correct.
Okay, because that's how we intended it. Yes, it
Correct.
wasn't just not, it was not just non-union, it was
Oh,
all.
oh, okay. And
Yes,
that's
that's-
not an award for everyone, but
I know.
everyone's eligible.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other corrections or additions? Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. As corrected. The next one is the April 8th minutes.
For this discussion, I'll move that we accept it.
Second?
Okay, any discussions? Any corrections, additions, changes?
Excuse me, yes, on the April 8th, under the Warren Little League payment plan,
What is the number?
number 2,
Okay,
it reads agreement by Warren Little League for a payment plan of $1,071.13 per year for 5 years.
no, it's
That's
over
wrong.
5 years.
I know, that,
But it's wrong, it has to be.
that was my correction.
Oh, shit. We wish.
Leave it in there.
I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Anyway, it's a big difference.
Okay, correct that. Any other? All those in favor of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, it is passed. Next item is the executive director's report. And you want to work us through that? We got a couple of unusual items in there, or new items in there as well.
Okay, one of the Medicom high pressure main, actually I've got that on the agenda, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The Barrington Bridge, actually we ran into some problems with our pipeline over the winter time. So looks like a couple of joints got kicked out of alignment, so we're working with the DOT on how that's gonna get resolved. So we haven't got anything definitive just yet.
Was it because of construction or because of the way it was installed?
We don't know. The engineers are kind of shaking their heads at this one. Not really any direct reason why it should have happened. It twisted up some of the hangers, so they think perhaps some of the hangers should have been designed a little differently, but they're not positive that's the reason either. So at this point, we're looking at what damage has been done and what needs to be resolved.
Excuse me, is this the Barrington Bridge or the Warren Bridge?
It's the central
It's the
bridge.
same, no, not the Central
Oh,
Bridge.
this is the
Barrington Bridge for the Warren, not on the Warren side, but going over.
This is the one where the valve, the
Barrington
expansion
Bridge.
valve was taken out.
This is the same one as, right, the expansion
And,
valve.
okay, so it's the one furthest west?
Yes,
Okay.
But
From Warren.
we're still on,
Yeah,
we're still on record of not being satisfied with the original
yes,
installation.
right.
yes.
That hasn't been clarified.
Do we have any idea of who's gonna be paying for this?
Well, we're not accepting responsibility for
Okay.
it.
Well, isn't the state accepting responsibility to fix it?
Go ahead, choose those words.
They are and they aren't at this point, so they want to take a better look at it. So we're going to be working with them, inspecting what the damage was, looking at what needs to be done. But we never did accept that main
Right.
because of the problems with the expansion valve. And they did take it apart in December and then come back to it again until just recently,
Who took it apart? The state?
the state.
I thought that we assembled it, but
No, they never did. They had bought the part, but by that time it was into January. So they had closed up all the construction work on the bridge.
okay.
And they were just starting back again this, earlier this month.
I'm going to do the Central Bridge?
Same thing, Central Bridge is, actually they removed the pipe wrap so we can inspect the joints. Our corporation do that, as I said. Tie-in with pipes is done.
Yeah, they cut across the last 2 nights.
Yes,
across the road to connect on the other side. I guess they have a valve right there. We're still using the line over the old bridge, and they can switch it over to the new bridge.
Once the line is
Right.
all confirmed, it's installed properly, and it's pressure tested and chlorinated, and we accept it.
You say pipe hangers, the central bridge are also going to be replaced?
They're looking at replacing some of them
So that's on the DOT?
on the other bridge.
On the DOT, that's the DOT?
It's the DOT.
Okay. I just wondered if there's any cost to us involved.
Not at this point. As you know, our flushing program has begun. It's going fairly well. Started up our treatment system for trihalomethanes. We've installed a piping system up at the Bayview storage and started the water recirculation and air flushing. Here are the reports.
And when you, do the flushing, do you increase the chlorination very much?
We do. We started it up. We don't raise it too high, but we run on the Providence chlorine until spring. When the water starts warming up a little, then we start adding the chlorine. We boost it up to about 1 part per million while we're flushing.
While we're on additives, there was something I saw this past weekend about fluoridation now. I guess they're saying that because it's in toothpaste, it's in all kinds of products, they're now recommending that the levels put in the water be lowered. Have we done that?
Well, we don't do that, that Providence water does that. And the average used to be that they recommended was 0.8 to 1, so now they're recommending around 0.7. So Providence used to run about 0.8, so it's just a slight adjustment now.
Okay.
I had a question about the construction requirements. You indicated that you were developing a checklist of the CWA application requirements for contractors.
Yes.
If we don't already have that, you're developing a list?
We didn't have a formal list. And things were done somewhat informally in the past. We're making it a formal
Standard
program,
list.
a standard list, and we're working with the 3 planning agencies. So we get involved in the planning stages when it goes to the towns for their approval.
So what's the timing of having that list put together?
Within the next month.
So once we have that list, could you simply work as a copy, and I would think it would make sense to also post it on the website?
Oh, definitely.
I have a question on the engineering report, information for myself. The work that's going on over here at the Kick and Muir Road, is that?
That's not us.
Okay, because there was some excavation going on. And the question I had was on, this is rather good report about the 3,000 feet for new ductile on Market Street.
Yes.
Could you give me an idea how that's supposed to run? I wasn't too sure when they say Market Street. I know they're doing Miller Street, from Miller to Warren to Main Street.
Main
right?
Street, and then we're going from Main Street to Metacom.
You're going from Main Street
Yes,
down Market Street?
down Market to
To
Metacom.
That was my original thought, but then I got a little confused as to if that really was the case. So it is
Yes.
going all the way down Market Street?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's a pretty problematic main. It's underwater at that point. The water table's really high there,
Water.
so it's going to require a lot of dewatering and special construction.
Especially
We
down
have-
in that.
Yeah, we have an old 6-inch main in there. It's not really large enough, and it's pretty well deteriorated. So it's got to be replaced entirely.
When do you think that's gonna happen?
We're looking at this year or early next year. We've got the plans and specs are all ready, we just need the final permits from the DOT.
It's interesting to know, too, Mr. Chairman, that all the design work was done in-house. I assume by Sue?
Yes, she did.
Yes. And
She's doing an excellent job.
4 of those 5 projects, we noticed, have been
All in-house.
Is that,
And I would say that probably 2 of those covers your salary for the year.
is
At
that,
least,
is that an increase in the size of the line?
yes.
Yes.
So kudos to Sue, please. Great job.
So I had a question about these projects. It would seem to me that as part of our community outreach and public relations, we should have a press release on each of these once we're ready to be specific about when the project is going to happen, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, and what the benefits are going to be.
We generally do, plus we also send all the information to the town councils and to all the customers in the areas too, of course.
Any of the homes get letters, if it's gonna be.
If they're going to be affected, I know, but one of the issues with rate increases is, well, why do we need a rate increase? And rather than putting all these together, I think we ought to do individual press releases because they're relevant to different people who are going to react to them differently, whether they're in Warren or in Barrington or in Bristol.
I think it's a good idea to let people know where the money's being spent. Especially if it proves like
Even
that.
if you put it on our website, you know, a quick bulletin paper, check it out, our website.
Well, I think all our press releases should be on the website.
Yeah, they do.
Do we have any idea of how many hits the website gets?
Very low. Yes,
Probably
we do have, we have
we
a
know-
tracker on it.
Okay, there's a tracker, okay.
But Randy has been, in his spare time, is working on a new website. So we're hoping to have that up and running in a few months. We don't just do a little at a time.
And
But if people can pay their bills easily online, I would think our website would be getting more hits. And if they go to a landing page to pay the bill, that should be used as something to provide people with publicity as well.
I'd like to comment also that I was on the website looking for information on the video. The videos were way behind, like the last, for our meetings. And it was like, the last one was like January, so I let Pam know, and she handed it off to Randy. He did a great job of getting all the videos together, put it on a YouTube channel for us. So I think it's gonna be a big help for people who want to view our meetings. At least they can find them much easier, much more easily, and, you know, in a timely fashion, the way he's had it set up, so.
The way it's been done is we're subject to when they want to run them. In other words, we used to give them.
Give them new channels.
Right, and then they will decide what to do. Now we're changing it, we'll have more control.
And he's going back and look for all the old videos too, to try to get as many as he can, and put them up online, so. I just thought that was a good point to bring up.
Any other questions about Sue's report or Randy's report?
I have a question on Randy's report.
Yep.
There's no mention, and I'd like to know, one of the things that we were supposed to do was start looking at updating our security. And I'd like to know if there has been any movement on that.
Yes, we've been looking at a number of different proposals. We've talked with Cox Cable, since we have Cox Cable in here, looking at what they have available. And they provided us with a proposal, which I haven't seen yet. I think it just came in. But there are, I believe, some things we can do inside the building that are relatively inexpensively, but we might be looking at doing some of the exterior work ourselves. And Randy's been looking into the cost of cameras and wiring and setting some things up in-house.
I guess my-
Going through an agency.
Good. One of my questions is, have you really looked at the scope of how much security you want to get
Yes.
in-house, locations and things like that? Okay, yeah, that. Well, I just thought I'd mention it since it wasn't on that.
Plus, some of what we're doing is we're tying into our SCADA system with door alarms, window alarms, motion alarms, cameras that won't record instantaneous, won't be recorded back to a direct system, but you can look back and see what the information, if there's any issues.
Well,
If you get an alarm, you can look it up within the time frame of the
If
camera.
you would, I'd like to see it included in the report when something is accomplished, or it looks like you're going to be doing something.
Yes.
Isn't that in the strategic plan as well?
No.
Yes,
Well, it was-
and I believe it's in my gold pack.
It's a goal, it was one of the goals that I had suggested.
Okay? Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, we're all set with that. Let's move on to the financial report.
I'm going to be very brief. I sent everybody a draft yesterday of the financial report. If anybody needs a hard copy, Kate does have it. What I tried to express is basically, we never really discussed the end of year until after the auditors had completed their audit previously. And I think last year I gave a draft. So basically what this is basically after I prepared everything, did all the reconciling adjustments that the authority was going to do, these were the numbers that went forward to the audit. So really, it's really just kind of at this point for your information. I don't think there's anything specific that should be discussed or whatever, until such time they finish the audit.
When are they due to be finished?
We're about a third of the way through. They'll be probably done in another 2.5 weeks. And then we work right up to the annual meeting. So I generally get a draft of the financials about a week or 10 days before that. And write the MD&A report. And then have a draft for the board for that night. Generally before it goes to the printers. We've been doing that, worked out well.
So we printed a limited number of copies ourselves.
Then once, we printed a limited number internally for the board for that night, and then we send them out to have them printed for the general public. But overall, the numbers, one thing I know, generally revenues aren't going to change in the consumption and everything. And, revenues, that number one, on page 1, revenues for the year were 2.1% over budget, and expenses for the year 4.7 under budget. So all good news. I mean, everything you'd want to see there. The increase in dollars was 3.96%. We had a 4% rate increase. And the consumption was up 0.22%, which is negligible, which is basically, I'd call that static, which is basically a half a day's and a year's increase. Debt service ratio, I'm confident of that, ended up at 2.04. We broke 2, which is like when we go for bonds, it's like our credit rating number, that we're financially in a good position right now. So.
But the reason that has also been increasing is because our restricted funds for our infrastructure, our IFR fund, that's cash, and our reserve fund that we've been starting to build up gets counted as part of this as well.
So that's going to make that go up.
Yeah.
Right. So we break down the revenue fund into those categories. They're unrestricted, so we can still use those for the ratio purposes. So any general questions or comments or?
Next month, I presume, we'll have the audit report, we'll have the finals, we'll know exactly where we
The
are.
annual meeting will.
But this doesn't, I'm assuming there's no early warning signs of any problem.
Everything is going very well. The biggest obstacle is our change from systems, that their mapping is out of whack. They were mapped to our old system, so we spent a lot of time remapping to things. So we're all looking at the same numbers on the same. But
Excuse me, Mom. Did you say the audit report should be by the end of June?
what's your
The
call?
audit report?
The end of May.
And the minute?
It'll be for the
Annual meeting.
Well, the date is wrong.
Yeah, you listed June 6th, and it's not June 6th.
It's either, well, whatever, that's on the agenda further down.
Yeah.
But it would be
So
ready
that's a
by then.
Saturday. So I'm assuming we're not gonna have an annual meeting on a
No,
Saturday.
no, I think that's it's supposed to be June 4th, which is a Thursday.
I thought it was May. What happened to May? Yeah, they usually have an annual meeting.
It's on the item, we'll get there.
It's to be discussed. I'll be out of town.
Oh,
And when we talked about it last time, the board indicated that they'd rather postpone it. But it's not absolutely necessary, so we still have it as a firm up the date at the end of the meeting.
gotcha.
Hey, if anybody has any particular questions, come see me, call me, I'm happy one-on-one to talk about them.
Okay. Next, bid awards. Now operating.
Okay, we had this on the agenda last month. We asked the low bidder to revise his bid because it had a couple of items on the bid that we were not intending to purchase. Since the second low bidder had also obtained, since he obtained it from the manufacturer, who was our low bidder, he had the same price with a markup. So we went back to him just to double check that he would not, to see if he would be interested in lowering his bid price. We never did get a response from him. We sent several communications and did not hear back. So at this point, we're recommending that the valve operator be awarded to WAC. And that was in the amount of $58,000.
So moved, Chair.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The next one is the expansion of, the task order, G.
Actually, that's with the Medicom project.
Yes.
So it's both, it's a discussion of the water main project and the related task order. So what I mentioned in my write-up is the fact that we started taking another look at Medicom because the state DOT is going to do some intersection improvements right in the areas where we want to replace the water main. So we figured if we can get in there before they do their improvements, we can save significant sum of money for those repaving those intersections.
Excuse me, ma'am. Are we skipping over something here, the task orders? The task orders for engineering services?
That's further down the agenda. Oh, we're on G.
G1.
Medicom Avenue,
Right.
Task orders are.
water main replacement. Task orders are H.
For some reason, mine got out of sequence.
Oh.
Okay.
But doing, realigning the timing of our effort for the state is exactly in accord with what we do if we find out that a town is going to repay or do something. We try to get in there so that we don't have to pay twice.
We've done that on Good Avenue.
Yeah.
Any approximate idea of the savings?
Not offhand, but paving can be up to 30% of our cost of construction. And Medicom being a fairly wide road in that area, and it's a state road, it's very particular about how you repave. The costs are a good percentage. Now, it won't cover all of it because they're just looking at the intersections, but we'll be dealing with 4 intersections in that 3,000 feet of pipe, rather. Plus,
When was that scheduled to be done?
that was scheduled to be done in the spring,
This
this coming spring. So we were looking at pushing be able to install the project this fall. Meanwhile, we were also working with the state on the Veterans Home Project and the fact that they need to, they want to take their water storage tank out of service, which they use as part of their fire system, and they want to depend on pressure. Considering their of the elevated pressure, it still wasn't enough for them to do the project in the way that they wanted to. So we worked with them to realign the project so it just meets specs, but not the best situation. If we replace this line before this project is in service, which is 2017, it falls well within the specifications for pressures and flows. Because we're going from an 8-inch main to a 12-inch main. The issue with the DOT with doing this project, of course, is they've got a lot of perhaps higher priority projects now in the state after this winter time. It's, they've got some really nasty areas that need attention. But veterans home construction is a high priority for the state, so they are actually going to see if they can get a letter of commitment from the DOT to get this work done in the next year. So we can jump in and do our work. So all the timing will work out.
So what do you need from us?
This is just information.
Informational?
Well, and plus I wanted to let the board know we were changing some of our priorities around. We had funds available in the existing bond, with TV bond. We had some that weren't dedicated to a specific project. They were for whatever we decided to do next year. We had an extra $1.5 million in that bond for next year's projects, which haven't been determined yet. Plus, we have now some funds. We're going to not do the work on the Child Street main. So that, we had another $500,000 from that work. So we're looking at about a $2 million project, which works out financially wise, fairly ideal, getting all of this done.
Could you explain a little more about the Child Street? You're gonna forego that?
Child Street was a main that we have on record as being installed pre-1935, which I'm sure it was. The treatment plant was 1908. We're not familiar with any water mains that were lined and installed before 1948 that had lined pipe. We were doing some fire flow testing and we were looking at issues with the main before we did any work with it. And comes to find out, well, the flow factors are relatively high on that, much to our surprise. So we started doing some research and looked into the fact that cast iron main, some was constructed in the 1920s as lined pipe. So there's a possibility that it was installed as lined pipe. There's also a possibility that sometime over the period of time before we had records, all of our records were lost in the 1935 fire. So it was perhaps at some time before that it also could have been lined. So at this time, all indications are that pipe does not need rehabilitation.
So the original reason for replacing it was only because it was an antiquated cast iron, and it wasn't because of any indication of problems?
It was because we were looking at some fire flow issues that turned out not to be related to the main.
Okay. So you verified that it
So
wasn't
we're verifying
part of the
that
main.
it was not the main itself.
I just hate to see us forego it and
No, we're actually,
being misled that it's okay and it's not.
no, we're actually doing work on that eastern end. We're
Right.
tying in some dead ends
Some dead ends.
and trying to get some parallels with the 8 to increase flow out towards the end of the system. We'll be taking coupons at that point when they open those lines. We'll take sections of the main out and make sure and take a look
okay.
at, see what condition it's
So
in.
you will be able to visually
Yes.
determine what the condition is
Mhm.
once you get work. Okay. That was pretty much my.
So if we have to do it, after next year, we can put it back on the schedule.
Okay.
But right now, indications are that it doesn't need it.
Well, the veterans home, the story I read was that they were going to move the water tower. Is it going to be non-functional?
It's going to be non-functional. They're just moving it for historical purposes.
Any other questions? This covers G and H, right?
And part of that is in order to get this work done in a timely fashion, and because it's a very complicated project being on Metacom Avenue, and with all the other utilities in there, it needs a lot more engineering. So we did request a PAR to provide us with a proposal for design, which they did. So we're looking at a design fee of $68,000 to get us through the bid phase services. And get it done in a timely enough manner that we can actually do the installation this fall.
Do you need a motion for that?
You need a motion for that, or this is part of?
I don't, but if the board would like to indicate that they're supporting the project, I think that would be helpful.
Does all this help with the pressure in that whole area somewhat?
Yes, it does, because just that section of pipe raises the, under flow conditions, raises the flow between 10 and 20 pounds. In other words, where you're getting a fire flow loss now of 20 pounds, it'll be 5 pounds in some cases.
And I offer a motion, Mr. Chairman, that the board support the proposal submitted by,
Okay, so then we should put in, this is to par for the amount of money. It's up to that amount, isn't it? The way this is normally, the way you normally issue these.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we need to have the language scoped out precisely. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, we're on the strategic plan update.
Well, any of the task orders. These are for board information. These are based on awards that for engineering services that were awarded 2 years ago, actually. If you have any questions on any of them?
On the task order?
Yes.
This is work that's already been done, right?
Nope, this is work that's just been awarded.
Just start.
Oh, okay.
We're in progress.
Oh, okay. This is on 3 tasks. You did 3 task orders?
Oh, I'm sorry, so the Maple Ave one. That one had been submitted in conjunction with the clean water financing request, but I did not submit it as a separate task order, so I'm just adding it in at this point. This is done, Maple Ave.
Okay. So basically all 3 projects are done.
Nope, Market Street is the one we're working on
With the
now
permitting, yeah.
for the permitting. And inspection for the Warren and Barrington projects, we're just, we've awarded the bid and it hasn't started construction yet.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I now, the strategic plan. I presume everyone has reviewed their program. Do you have any questions about any of the status that are offered? You want to go through it page by page, you want to,
I had a number of questions and
Sure.
comments. I don't know if other people did too. Kind of want to know it.
well, if you have a number of questions, just tell us what category you're in, what page, and we'll go right to it.
Okay, we'll start with the overview, but it continues when you get into the granular detail. I found it notably lacking in metrics and timing. You know, for example, pursue, on the first page, pursue interconnection with Pawtucket Water Supply Board. No mention of East Providence alternative. Then I go to the discussion, and the first date that I see is construct a new main in 2020. And then I, further down the page under June 2015, have not been successful in meeting with East Providence. Will pursue meeting with legislators. East Providence Commission study with CDM to study risks of present system. As I look at this issue, it's one of the biggest issues facing this company.
Right.
And I don't find this information of sufficient granular detail for me to make a judgment. I mean, for example, we couldn't meet with East Providence last year, so presumably nothing has happened about meeting with East Providence and moving this up to some level of urgency.
Actually, since this was put out, we did manage to get a schedule a meeting with East Providence for tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
In all fairness, to staff, there has been a continuous dialogue over the last 2 or 3 months, monthly meetings
Yes.
on update on what's happened. Though it's not reduced to writing, there has been extensive verbal communication between staff and the board.
See, as I look at a strategic plan, it should be self-explanatory, it should be something that can be shared with the public, and it can be updated as we have new information. I see nothing in this plan that indicates a sense of urgency or importance with this alternative connection. That's my concern about
So
that issue.
if you look at it overall, the urgency, as far as town of Bristol, they went so far as to endorse.
Do it.
To do it.
They said do it.
And they did it through, not an ordinance, it's
A resolution.
a resolution. And hopefully, at some time in the near future, or Barrington and Warren will follow, but Bristol has taken that position, so. I haven't heard, I don't know if there's a resolution from Barrington, I haven't heard a resolution from Warren, so.
No, I
just
know
feel
that by way of
that-
background. My point is, a strategic plan should be self-explanatory and speak for itself. It shouldn't be the color about what's been discussed over the last few months. It all should be here, and I don't see it here. And I don't see the kind of metrics that would allow someone to say that the executive director has met her objectives for the fiscal year or not met her objectives for the fiscal year.
I think the strategic plan is set out to tell us what we want to do, and we've been doing that, meeting after meeting, and we've met with both 3 councils, and this one endeavor in particular.
We met at the state level.
Yes, so it's an ongoing thing, that it's not printed every day, we're doing what we're set out to do.
I don't think that's Gina's point. I think Gina's point is it's not reflecting, maybe there's a little more detail that could have been included in the action items as to what has been.
Well, the status,
When-
so we'll flesh out the status.
You know, for example, if we can't have a satisfactory meeting with East Providence, if there's no progress there, what are we going to be doing 6 months from now?
Well, right now, just so you make sure you know where we are, there is going to be a meeting, staff is meeting tomorrow. They told us several months ago that they were going to issue a study to determine the needs, whether or not it was practical. This is leading to part A, the connection between our crossing and their tank. They didn't do it. Pam just found out that they were now going to issue an RFQ, not an RFP. So she's meeting with them now to figure out exactly where they are, how fast this is going to go. To somehow use a metric as to Pam's performance, I think, is unwieldy.
Well, then who owns the responsibility if not Pam?
The board does.
Well, I don't regard this as satisfactory as a blueprint for the board then.
Okay,
So no on record.
then you go on record as that the board is acting, I think, and has acted continually to try to deal with the situation. And it looks to me like there are several options that are still out there. One of which is to build a pipeline ourselves to the exclusion of East Providence and pay for it. That's one of the options we have. May not be highly desirable, but even that may be less expensive than trying to redo the water treatment plant. Now, we've known about
We
that.
already know that, right?
Right.
So-
So but that's the least desirable one. The most desirable is to have a joint effort with East Providence and the state to deal and get to Pawtucket. But the state has no money right now. At the same time, there's still a law that says We have a regional project, they're supposed to pay 50% of that. And then we said we were going to focus on Plan B, the Plan A, Phase A, that first connection, which was worth about $4 million, cost about $4 million. So the options there would be that we would share that cost with East Providence and the state and do it. If East Providence comes out with this study that says this is important, then that's going to enhance their desire to cooperate with us. If it turns out that they're not going to do that, then we have the option of sharing that directly or doing it ourselves.
Payment report
I get
last.
all that, but
Okay.
from my standpoint, that information should be here with timing. So if we don't have information from East Providence that they're willing to proceed by, pick a date, December 2015, September, June 2016, are we going to take action or not? I think it all should be in here. I don't think a reasonable person should have to go back over 2 years' worth of minutes and try to reconstruct what our strategy is to do this.
Payment reported last month, right, Mr. Chairman, that the council was pretty much against it, but the town administrator was working with CBM to approach the council on the importance of a redundant source. I passed that information on myself, remember, so I'm pretty much up to speed then.
And Warren met directly with them,
Yeah.
or with somebody, and found that they had a problem. They couldn't deal with it.
If I make a comment on what Jim said, I don't think it serves any purpose, especially ours, to say, if East Providence doesn't do this by this date, here's what we're going to do.
I agree with
We want to leave it open until there is no choice.
Right.
Exactly.
I
Keep the
think,
communication going. It was
I
a
think
day-to-day thing. And so therefore, if you're looking for next month to say something based on the meeting of tomorrow, you're probably not going to get it because who knows when East Providence is going to get a response that's worthy of entering that information here.
I think that Gina's point is well taken, except her point is that when you're dealing with reasonable people, it is painfully obvious to everyone in this room that we need to do this pipe, and doing it with East Providence is in everyone's interest. However, setting a deadline isn't going to make the horse drink the water any more than leading it to it is going to. East Providence is going to come on their own timetable.
Sure.
And we're talking about millions of dollars in difference. And while there is an urgency, and I don't think you're going to get an argument from anyone here that there is an urgency, there is, I don't want to pay extra money because East Providence is all, and then we go over a date that we wrote in our strategic plan.
Well, I agree with you unless we have an earthquake or some problem and it impacts our water supply, in which case we're going to look pretty silly, aren't we, sucking our thumbs saying, well, we're just waiting for East Providence.
Well, we did our best to make East Providence move and due diligence, repeated meetings, and Pam going in again, and if we fail, it isn't for our lack of trying. And the alternative is East Providence decides, yes, after we spend how many millions of dollars to do it on our own, it's a balancing act, to be sure. And I have to say, I don't think the deadline's going to change the paradigm that East Providence is working under. I think that we have to go according to plan, as Pam has been doing. I think that if we go in there and say, well, we need to know by December, they're going to say, well, we don't know by December, go ahead, have a good time.
Jim, if I can ask a question, has the state been in contact with you, finding out from you what our position is and what East Providence position is, or are they just waiting for the two towns?
I think they're waiting for the towns to support it before they get involved.
Okay.
Which is why I also put in here, I think it's important that we find out as much as we can about where East Providence is, and then we go to our legislators and explain the situation.
Okay.
So at least we keep them informed as to what's happening and the importance of doing this as a joint project with 3 water utilities.
Okay. So we're looking for support at the state level for everybody that's involved here.
Exactly.
I think it will soon be time for a tri-town council and representatives and senators meeting where we brief everybody all at once and take pictures of take pictures of the whole meeting, and anyone who doesn't show up, we send them a CD and say, here's what we talked about, so everybody will know. Because it's like you wisely said, there's no reason to be too aggressive in this. You're trying to get people politically to cooperate with you. It seems that there's some action now being taken, and while it appears that it might be a day late and a dollar short, Pam's going to find out exactly what's going on, and by next month, we should be in a better position to decide how quickly we should pull everything together and brief everyone.
I don't know about Barrington, but Warren is just waiting for something in writing, doesn't have to be formalized, that they're on board or will be on board.
When these provinces commit.
Correct.
Yeah, but if they don't commit, then what will Warren do?
I'll tell you, my feeling, Warren is not too keen on us spending money and going along. At least I've heard that from at least.
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
Correct. But that doesn't mean we can't proceed.
No, I know, but that's their feeling.
Correct.
It's a feeling of at least a couple of the council.
I know John feels strongly, and I think everyone does here, that we have to start with that connection first.
Definitely.
We're
We're having a hard
it's not gonna happen. In our lifetime, we're talking.
We're having a hard enough time convincing our council that the other option isn't still there. And isn't, the way I get talking to the council.
Correct.
They still think, oh, we got the reservoirs, we can use them. You try to tell them it's gonna cost you more money, and it's less water.
And not as good quality.
But they haven't all grasped that yet. And I don't understand, honestly, myself, they're not basically footing the bill. I don't know what their big problem is. All we're asking them is to support us in an endeavor to get extra water for Bristol County.
I kind of have to disagree with that a little bit right now because of the change in council. I think that was the general feeling or impression that we got from the previous council, but the newer members have not quite committed and have been as outspoken, I think, because they're just kind of gathering information. So I wouldn't say that they're all on board with that.
I didn't say all.
No, I know that was the general feeling before, but I think it's kind of like
Maybe changing.
some of them are kind of like neutral, they're just in a
Okay.
fact gathering.
Well, we should shortly be in a position where we can brief everyone on the current status, and so that should bring all the new people up to snuff, at least in terms of getting all the facts. Anyway, you had said you had a bunch of these things.
I mean, for instance, improve customer service, okay?
What page?
Well, it's part 2 of the first page
Okay.
with several things listed, and then it goes on to page 6. And metric, positive customer comments, requests for information, support for rate increases. I don't regard those as measurable metrics. I think that if customer complaints were, pick a number, percentage-wise or number of complaints in 2012, and they're half that in 2015, you know you're improving something. If you had 2 press releases in 2012 and you have 25 in 2015, that's measurable. I don't see, most of the stuff here, to me, is not measurable.
Do we have data, Pam, on how many customer complaints we get or responses?
Yes.
So we can pull some of that together then.
So if you go to page 7, metrics, positive comments, support for issues, meetings, again, I don't see, if you're talking about the public, I don't see how you're going to do that as a metric that's measurable.
Nor do I. And in fact, I was one that thought a lot of these metrics were useless.
Yeah, I think they are. I'd like to
because-
see fewer of them and have them be specific.
Well, that some of these things, in my opinion, you can't put a metric on. Because the fact of the matter is, nobody thinks about the water authority, positive or negative, until or unless there is a water shut-off. This is not something that people think about.
I agree with you, but
Never.
if people can log into the website to pay their bills and can make a comment, it's easy to put whatever their commentary is. And if we measure that, then we as the board know more than we know today, which is very little.
And a lot of people think Mayor Koch, who always saw, how am I doing? Every time he talked to somebody, you know, was a fool, a political fool. So, you know, there's different opinions on this. Do you want to solicit comments, or are you saying that these would be, they may take advantage of it to be able to say something?
That's all I'm saying.
There's a telephone that's been here for how many hundreds of years? We've got a telephone, so I don't think we've stopped anybody from calling the water authority, or calling a member of the board, or calling a town council, or raising Cain in the paper. You know, but I don't see any of this stuff.
No.
Well, I saw a lot of uproar when we raised rates.
Of course. And a lot of that is generated by the politicians, is generated by the politicians who want to tell the people, look, I'm protecting you, okay? How many of the politicians went after Cox, or went after the
National Grid?
National Grid, or went after the cable full channel to say, you're raising your rates, you can't do that? How many of them went after that? I didn't see anything about that from our representatives, any of those people. We are an easy target. And they go after us every time there's an election period. That's standard procedure. I've witnessed that again and again and again.
Well, how many times have we sat here? We open, we have a public hearing for a rate increase, not one single person. Not even the local paper. And yet you pick up the local paper right after it's adopted, and there's a comment about it.
Okay, excuse me, but to make a comment on customer service, the example, in the B section of this, where it says enhances customer service, the metric, all personnel able to provide information to our customers,
What page are you on?
page 6,
Okay?
on the B. At the very trailer of that, all personnel able to provide information to customers, customer access to information. A good example of that is what I spoke of earlier about the videos for our meetings. Now, that's something that unfortunately, if I hadn't gone looking for that, I'm sure there might have been, not very many maybe, but there may have been customers out there that did want to view something of our meeting, and that information wasn't available, so we weren't doing a good job about that. I'm sorry.
But you did
now-
a good job, and brought it to the attention, and we fixed it.
I know, exactly. I guess the
But
question
who
is,
has responsibility on the staff to review what's there at least once a month
or
and fix it?
do any of the customers ever make a comment about something like that? We never hear about that. Would someone say, hey, I'm online, I know, I got a call one time, and this is what kind of brought my attention to it, and this is going back months. I got a call one time and said, gee, you know, I went to look up your monthly meeting, and my God, it's been 2 months and I don't see it up there. So that's kind of what focused me on this, and the fact that I was looking for some information of a recent meeting, and it wasn't there. So I think there are ways that we can keep track of some of that. And I don't know if Joe does that, if Joe actually pays attention to customers' complaints and lists them. You say there is some of that going on?
Yes, we do.
Well, it says monitor type of customer complaints and response ongoing. But that says nothing to me about what the responsibility is, just that somebody somewhere is presumably monitoring. We don't get any insight into what they find and whether it's getting worse or better.
Maybe just giving us a report from Joe on what's received over time, and we can draw our own conclusions about whether
We should have a dashboard
supporting it.
for customer satisfaction, and if you have no complaints and no comments, then you're either doing a great job or people have totally lost interest in providing input.
I would just like to ask, and maybe you already do this, to make staff aware of the fact that it is important to the board to get that kind of information. Now, they may receive calls, pro or con, someone may call them and say, yeah, you guys did a wonderful job. Maybe we'd like to hear that too. And if they are getting complaints, then hear that. I don't know if the people that take that information are aware that the board is even interested in that. I don't know. They may not even be passing along to Joe. I don't know that.
He does have a log that they track that,
Do
but
they?
it's very minimal. as far as
Well, why don't we
comments.
see what we can do to improve this, so at least the board knows what's going on. You have more?
Yes, redesign, employee training and development programs, you have the date later in here, but identify metrics to monitor performance, which is under part 3. It wasn't clear how that's going to function, just the mention of the new computer system, but does that mean that employees are going to be given merit increases based upon performance as opposed to increases based upon the passage of time?
The management is based on merit increases.
Union is.
Union is based on contract. The idea is to look at performance in general, say, how long does it take to install a new service line? What are the issues involved? How long does it take to replace a hydrant? How long
So
does it take
physical
to do-
performance of replace, it needs to be
Right.
specific, because I certainly did not get the impression it was talking about installation procedures.
Well, it's very general because we haven't really gotten to the specifics at this point. We're still in the process of setting up the work order program, which will actually do measurements of time and materials and so on.
But, I've said my piece. From my vantage point, this needs to be rewritten, simplified, and it needs to be actionable with metrics that any reasonable person can understand, and then we should post it on the website.
Is this on the website now? Isn't the strategic plan on the website?
The summary is, the
Okay.
detail is not.
Okay.
By
Any
the
other,
summary, do you mean the first page?
No, I think there's a shorter general summary.
any other questions or comments? None, move to the next item, please.
That handout we got tonight on safety,
Safety valve, water line, the fellows cannot be here tonight, when do we have him come in June?
He's available in June, would like to have him come in. Because there was some questions from the Warren Town Council regarding the program and what was involved.
Right, we had, when Bill arrived, the last town council meeting with Warren, they had a couple of questions. I was surprised, thinking about surprise. They had the questions, but the reason they had the questions was because evidently some constituents were questioning them about it. And I still think there's a bit of confusion out there because the people that have spoken to me directly, and this is going back a few months, is they still get the impression sometimes that for some reason that the water company is pushing this on them. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make it clear to the Warren Town Council what we were trying to do. I did send them an email the very day afterwards. The reason I did was because ironically, the next day, I got this envelope in the mail. It was addressed to my son, who hasn't lived with me for over 15 years. It was addressed to him though, and it was from another company that is out there that is offering this service.
Yeah,
A home serve water line insurance company. So I informed the town councilors for their information that of that situation, that there were two companies out there, one that we had one that the BCWA had vetted and had a discussion with, and the other that, we don't really know.
Actually, there's a third as well.
Is there a third? Okay. So, a question to the other directors, has any of the town council members questioned this service or any
Yes.
feedback?
yeah.
One mentioned it once, but
Yeah.
wasn't.
And I just say we're unaffiliated with them, we're just providing a service you want to take advantage of, we don't have any financial gain.
and we provided the information on the
Yeah.
actual number of breaks, the chances of a break. So that was something somebody asked.
I was gonna comment that Pam did send us information, an informational letter out to the town council.
Also, yes.
which pretty much covers a lot of the information that I think they had questions on, and would answer the questions. I just want to make everybody aware that there is another company out there, and Pam said there's at least 2 other companies out there.
So the guy was gonna come today, and what was he gonna talk about? Just general?
No, we just asked him on Monday, so he couldn't do it. But if the board had any questions for him, he can talk about the program. So he would be available, because we're not gonna have a meeting next month, and he'd be available.
Yeah,
Let them come.
I don't know.
no, I like the idea that it's in there, because first of all, I didn't even realize myself there was an issue of responsibility of the, and I'm sure nobody else does. And even if you did know there was an issue, how would you even find a company that provides this kind of plan without seeing it? The only question I have, and I haven't looked into it, is whether or not the common homeowner's insurance policy covers for that kind of a loss. And whether or not, you know, this is unnecessary. I haven't looked into it.
Not that I know of. Some policies will cover inside, but I don't know of any that will actually cover outside. And then when a customer actually has a leak, it's got to be taken care of immediately. And they're usually surprised by the fact that they own the line and are responsible for it. And then, of course, the cost, because you have to hire someone to come in and dig it up and
I
replace it.
understand.
So it's, the cost runs, can run, $1,000 to $10,000, depending on your situation.
If you're 400 feet from the street,
Brad, that issue that I talked about, Jane Marshall, that was, she had a contract, 2,400, well, call it water company, oh, that the line was on her property, $2,400.
Now, the difference in plans, basically it's the 3 plans just increased benefit. Is that basically only necessary if you have a long distance from the road?
well, I would think so. I measured the distance from the street to my house, noted that it was going through lawn, not through my driveway, all right? No tree in the way, and that if I had to dig it out by hand, hire somebody or a backhoe, all I gotta do is 30 feet, and they're there. So I can't cost $10,000, right? Whereas if you live a long distance or up a hill, or the pipe is under your driveway, you maybe want to think differently of it.
Right. So, I mean, this is maybe there should be something that says, well, I don't know, but if you have a standard colonial and a standard old-fashioned street with only 50 yards, you don't need the total or standard, you just need basic, but if you've got some mansion down a private lane.
What brings to mind for us, at least for me, is I keep going back to what happened to the garden shop.
Yeah.
And they had to actually break up sidewalks for the town. And that was their cost. And that is an issue, and I'm sure that was an old, probably galvanized pipe, because it was fairly old building. What I try to tell people that have ever questioned me on it, and it's pretty much indicated in the brochure that people who have older lines are probably more susceptible. Older lines.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about last month, that's why.
Galvanized piping, with the newer copper pipes, probably not so much.
But it's not a high percentage.
No.
Even here, it's not a high percentage.
We haven't had any of these yet, but the program's not even a year old yet. But I know when I was in Pawtucket, we had a number of them, and we had a lot of very grateful customers when they had purchased the
And
insurance.
why were there so many claims in Pawtucket?
Pawtucket's an older system, they had a lot older services, they had galvanized and iron services, which are much higher risk. And actually, if you get into copper services older than 50 years, and it depends on if the oil's more corrosive to metal, that could be a problem. In our area, we have a lot of plastic, and plastic deteriorates over time as well, so that's something to be aware of.
All right, okay, so we'll talk about that in June. Now, the next issue is the change of date for the annual meeting, and so the recommendation is we do this on June 6th, or, excuse me, May, June 4th, Thursday.
Only question. I have looked at it. Is there any conflict with the state statute that says when we have to meet annual meeting?
Yes, I did ask Joe about that. It's not in the state statute, it's in our bylaws.
I'll buy it.
That says we will have our annual meeting on the last week of May. Joe says that if the board wants to change that, they can vote on it. But you
That's
actually
right.
have
Right.
to make it a vote,
Yeah, then that's what we're doing.
right?
That's just what we're doing.
I mean,
Otherwise, if you wanted to have it the end of May, again, I won't be here, but it's not critical that I be here.
if you want to comply with the bylaws, have it in May.
You're not a voting member, so.
I don't think it's crucial, but
Yeah, keep it in. All right, will everything be done, everything be ready for it,
Annual meeting?
for the annual meeting?
Because essentially what we need is the annual report. I'll be gone the last 2 weeks in May, but the report's being worked on. So generally, all Mark has to add is his financials in the back of that report for the May meeting. If you just want to have it be that week, that's
So normally then it would be on what, May 27th or 28th?
the Thursday.
Thursday, May 28th.
Say, oh, Mark goes
I
right
don't
down.
mind having an extra week,
yeah,
just let you know.
well, you can have, if you want to just comply with the bylaws, you can have a very limited agenda that night. And then,
Election of officers and,
like the officers and finish it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I mean, you don't have to do this, all it says is you have to have the annual meeting in May, it doesn't say what has to be on the agenda. So you could convene, elect the officers,
Just do a 7-minute meeting and get out.
and be gone, and then put everything over
And
to
that
June.
would be wise, because there will be very few questions that need to be addressed by Pam.
do we have any presentations that night for the science fair or
See, we
anything?
used to, we're not doing the science fair now. We didn't
Oh,
talk.
we did, yes, we do.
One science fair.
Well, and we've narrowed it down considerably.
So you could do that, you could do those two things.
Or you could put that off until the next
Set it off
meeting.
on the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
have a whole day to the election
of officers.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting then on the 28th. And the only items on the agenda will be the election of officers. That's
Do we
it.
have it here, or does it have to be?
Here,
Okay.
here.
No
The
sense-
reason that we were holding it in the town hall is we were giving out all the awards. We
Right.
needed a bigger place.
Okay.
I think we had it here last.
Yeah, last year we had it here, because we didn't have all the little essay
Correct.
things,
Right.
or posters.
May 28th.
So we'll have it on the 28th, and then we'll have another meeting on the 6th, or the 4th of June.
let us know what's going on.
Let me just ask about that. Are you saying, Joe, that we can't have a vote tonight to postpone the annual
I
meeting
mean-
to June 4th?
Is it gonna be critical? No, but you will be violating the bylaws.
So let's have-
Strictly by the letter, you would be violating the bylaws.
Let's have the limited annual meeting, not violate the.
But I guess the question is, do you have to have a meeting on the 4th, or is it,
Yeah.
if
Why
there's,
don't
if
we
there's
just have it
nothing
at the end of the
pressing,
month?
if there's nothing pressing, just have it at the regular.
That would make more sense.
Instead of the 4th of June, the end of the month, that the,
Have a meeting, annual meeting with normal time for the May meeting, and have a regular June meeting, and we'll just put.
So the annual meeting will be at 6 o'clock on the 28th of May.
okay.
And it's a limited agenda, and then we'll meet then, what would be the 25th?
So the 25th, we would not provide the annual report and the audit until the 25th of June.
Is that gonna be a problem?
No, there's no problem with that.
That would be
I mean,
that'd be great.
we are mandated for other, we do have to get copies of those reports out by, I know for the trustees and things, I'm gonna say mid-June, so I think the board has to get it or accept it. They accept
Maybe we need
it.
to have, maybe we need
Well, you
to.
could-
Or I just give it to anybody else.
So that's what I'm saying, if you need to, if there's an action item that you need on June 4th, then you have to have a meeting on June 4th.
Once you
If
get-
there's not something that you need, do it at the end of the month, but that's what we need to know. Is there something that has to be done in
Do you
June?
have a,
Well, doesn't it doesn't sound like it needs to be done June 4th. Does it need to be done?
What is
whatever
your
date.
date, Mark, what is your date?
I've got to check with the, because I know I'm in the, like all, you know, all our bond holders and whatever, they require a copy of that pretty promptly.
We have to fulfill that obligation, so
But I believe it was.
I don't want to send that before I give it to the,
obviously.
give it out to the board.
Well, you can call a special meeting, whatever the timetable might be. If you
I
can't,
mean, we have to work to have it ready.
Well, with June
For the
18th,
28th,
with June
that's for that
18th,
meeting.
I just see no reason to have 2 meetings, 2 weeks in a row unless we have to.
No, but if, let's say you had to get it to the trustees by June 15th. So there's no need to rush for the 28th, we can have a meeting on the 11th.
11th.
And that would be your June monthly meeting. In other words, you don't need another meeting 2 weeks later.
Unless something else came up.
Right.
So why don't we let staff
Research.
research this,
And let us know.
advise everybody, and then we'll pick a date, either the 4th, 11th, 18th, the 25th.
Yep.
The June meeting's Memorial Day, that Monday's Memorial Day. So no sense going crazy.
Why you
What
rush
happens?
to Thursdays?
Pardon me?
Why you rush to Thursdays?
Printed.
I don't know, just-
It was a Thursday for the annual meeting was all.
Okay.
We don't do Thursdays for general, typically Wednesday.
Okay, we're all set.
All right.
Next item is adjournment. Any other business, any other comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Okay.